I'm going to tell you the GPUs that I hate for 2023 at the price they're currently selling at. We're going to talk about $500 and under GPUs. We're going to talk about $300 and under GPUs. Then, of course, we're also going to talk about the fabled $1,000 and above GPUs. And yes, a lot of the newer stuff, unfortunately, is going to be that amount. Let's start with $300 and under. Which GPUs should you absolutely avoid? And remember, I may say just buy a used GPU or something open box. That's within the realm of reality here if you want to save a lot of money. Retail, you're still going to get ripped off. So let's take a look. $300 and under. First, avoid any of the GPUs that were made to really suck. I'm talking about the 6500 XT. I don't care if this is $50. You should never buy a 6500 XT, period. And remember to subscribe and smash that like button. So then you're wondering, are you safe if you buy the 6600 XT? I mean, this GPU was, recommended a lot during the last few years, and it definitely comes in under $300. Well, guess what? I hate this one too in 2023. Very good reason why. It's still a great performing GPU. It's still under $300. The prices have definitely gone down, but what about the RTX 3050, Nvidia versus AMD? You should definitely buy the Nvidia one, right? Nope, do not buy the RTX 3050. I hate this one too for 2023. And yes, you can find it for under $300 as well. And it is an Nvidia GPU, which may sway certain buyers. You definitely want to avoid this one as well. It's really not going to be the best choice. And that's why I hate it, because there is one you should buy. How about the 6650 XT? Yes, AMD seems to beat Nvidia in this sort of more budget range, even though we're talking about $300 GPUs pretty much. And not every single 6650 XT will fall within $300 or below. There are certainly some that do. I just looked up right now, Newegg had one in stock, so you can definitely get it brand new retail, not to mention on the second-hand used market. So under $300, don't buy a 6500, 6600, RTX 3050. You want to go for that 6650 XT. I think that's going to be your best value, and that's a GPU I do not hate for 2023. If you look over on the used market, however, you may be able to pull like a 3060 Ti for around that price, as some have been getting close or lower than $300. So your mileage may vary there, but you're going to have to, take the risk on a used GPU. But if you're talking strictly brand new retail, definitely I would keep my eye on that 6650 XT. I think that's going to be probably your best bang for the buck. So how about $500 and under? Are there GPUs here that I hate? Well, definitely. There are many here that you should probably not buy from both AMD and Nvidia. Remember, retail prices start to get worse and worse the higher up you go, eventually until we reach really bad value for your dollar. Here, which GPU do I absolutely hate? Well, the first one that I definitely hate is going to be the RTX 3060. You can often find these for well under $400 retail, and they do have 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which seems enticing, doesn't it? I mean, the 3060 Ti only has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Should you be concerned about that difference? Well, absolutely not. While more VRAM is all is good, at the type of resolutions you're going to be playing with something like a 3060, you're never really going to max that out before other bottlenecks in the GPUs intervene. I mean, 12 gigabytes of VRAM, that's what comes on the 4070 Ti or even the 3080 Ti, which was a top GPU. So it's really something that's geared for a completely different segment of the market. So here, I definitely do not think you should look at that VRAM as any type of real benefit, unless a very particular use case where you're going to use this GPU for something else aside from gaming. So I do not like the RTX 3060 under $500 because there are so many better options that are going to absolutely crush it. I mean, look at its bigger brother. The 3060 Ti is much better, and often it's going to be around almost the same price. If you look on the used market, on the retail side, it's probably going to be a little bit more now. The prices are not as inflated as they used to be, and And the 3060 Ti is going to be an entire category or tier above in performance compared to the RTX 3060. But under $500, I still kind of hate the 3060 Ti because we also have AMD's 6700 XT. This one is going to go toe-to-toe with Nvidia's RTX 3070, and while you're not going to get the best ray tracing performance out of it, you're not going to do that as well with any of these GPUs until you start getting to much more expensive options. So under $500, I don't hate the 6700 XT. Once again, it looks like AMD is providing some better value performance for the dollar in that $500 and under if you're looking at retail pricing. And under $500, how about the Nvidia RTX 3070? This is pretty much a popular staple that's been very popular since its release. It originally came out at $499, so that's kind of like its original breaking point, the price. And of course, we saw it go for as high as like $1,200 to $1,300 during the GPU craze of 2021. Is this a GPU that I hate under $500? Well, actually, no, I kind of like this one too. I would say between the 6700 XT or the 3070, performance aside, the 3070 may be a little bit easier to find in certain cases. 6700 XT and even the 6750 XT, if you can actually find one for under $500, that's when I would start to kind of maybe tilt my balance, in my opinion, a little bit more towards the AMD side. But here, I don't really hate the 3070, especially if you get it for well under 500. Just main thing, remember not to get it above 500, then it becomes a terrible value and you might as well get something else or even go to the used market. And I'm still seeing 3070s for much more than $500 on retail. You have to remember, Nvidia looks at the 3070, 3070 Ti and below as still being like an active production pretty much. It's the mainstream GPU for people. So the prices have not gone down to like basement prices. These prices are still high, and in many cases you may even find a retailer selling the 3070 for over like $600. It's definitely not going to be unheard of. For under $500, it's good. Anything over, definitely would hate it in 2023 at that point. In my opinion, you're better off going on the used market if you really want a 3070. I've seen them go for like $350. Then it's actually a pretty awesome GPU. And then you can kind of shop the used 6700 XTs, which may be even cheaper at that point if you're going to be buying on the secondhand market. So how about that $500 to the $1,000 bracket? This is definitely what used to be high end, but now there are many GPUs that I absolutely hate here. First, 7900 XT. Absolutely hate this GPU in 2023. $899 is just way too expensive. Does not make any sense at all, especially when at $999 you can get a 7900 XTX. I know the problem. It's hard to find the XTX in stock, especially at $999. And I'll even go a little bit further. I know all of my viewers across the world, people that are not in the US, your prices are going to be much higher. In many cases, actually, they do already include taxes. So when I talk about a $999 price for like a 7900 XTX, remember in the US, sales tax will be applied after that. So the price really is going to be, who knows, 6 to maybe 10% higher. Now, in Europe and in different places around the world, a lot of that sales tax is already baked into the price. That's why we see a lot higher pricing. Just remember to compare them apples to apples whenever you make these comparisons overseas and compare them to the US prices that I talk about. But going back to the 7900 XT, it's not a bad GPU. The only problem is $899 is just way too expensive, and I absolutely hate it in 2023. If you can, wait for that 7900 XTX. It's a completely different tier GPU. But if you're shopping more in that $500 to $700 range, definitely a few GPUs I still really hate around this price point. Of course, you don't want to be overpaying a retailer for something like a 3070 Ti for who knows what, $600 or above, when you could probably land a 6950 XT in that range under $700. I must say this is going going to be one of the best options because it's still going to perform really, really well, aside from some driver issues that recently popped up. After those are fully resolved, and if you're confident in that GPU, I think the 6950 XT or even a 6900 XT that you can get for a cheaper price, maybe closer to $600, I don't hate those in 2023. They're a few years old at this point, but they're still going to have really awesome performance for that type of price. The GPU that everybody seems to hate that's more recent is going to be the 4070 Ti. Now, at $799, it's a little bit spicy to swallow that price. It kind of goes hand in hand with the 7900 XT at $899 being priced very poorly. I mean, if you want a next generation GPU, that's your cheapest choice at this point, $799. And I even just released a video where I found an open box at Best Buy 4070 Ti for $679. That GPU originally was about $849, so that's a savings of $170 off that price. That's a pretty good deal. I think almost anybody would think that paying $679 for that GPU, definitely pretty good. That's around the price it probably should be, really, MSRP retail, if we view the price to performance and compare it to last generation. But alas, Nvidia has decided to push these prices up pretty high, and unfortunately, most people are stuck paying at least $799, which, I mean, it's the cheapest next generation GPU, but I do hate any 4070 Ti that's above that MSRP. Anything above $799 is unspeakable, and you should definitely never buy it. $799, if you really want to make a fringe case for it, it's not a good value at all, but it's kind of what's out there. I'll say the same thing about the 7900 XT. I really hate it for $899, way too expensive. But what if you're someone that just needs a GPU and you walk into your local retailer and everything else is sold out, no 7900 XTX, and this guy is sitting on the shelf for $899? If you buy it, I mean, I don't blame you. You're either going to have to go last generation like a 6950 XT or something like a 3090 from Nvidia. Otherwise, it's going to be your only option, and I realize that's a reality for many people. We may criticize the best optimal option, like never get a 4070 Ti, never get a 7900 XT, but let's be realistic. Some people do. Sometimes it's the only GPU available, or sometimes it makes sense for them. They can't find a better value around the area that they're in. We all have different retailers and pricing, so I'll keep that in mind so everything's more fair and balanced. At the end of the day, I don't really hate most of these GPUs. I mostly hate the pricing that they're at. Well, aside from the 6500 XT, that GPU just really sucks. 6500. Remember those numbers, and those are really, really bad graphics cards. But everything else is still pretty plausible. 4070 Ti is not exactly a 3090 Ti, but for the efficiency, it does put out some pretty good numbers when we're comparing it to other GPUs of last generation. And of course, in 2023, I hate any GPU that's RTX 3000 and still overpriced. Like, if you're paying more than $700 or $800 for like 3080s, 3080 Ti, 3090s, you definitely should not do that. At that point, it's a better idea just to go for a 4070 Ti and just, stomach that $799 price, because that's going to be newer, DLSS 3.0, and it's going to be better than those GPUs. It even beats a 3090 Ti in many cases, which is another GPU I really hate in 2023. Way too overpriced for what it is. Unless you get it for like $600, the 4070 Ti for most people is going to make more sense, unless you need those 24 gigabytes of VRAM, but definitely not at the $1,000 mark that these 3090 Ti's are selling for. At that point, you might as well push for a 7900 XTX, which is going to give you definitely a lot better performance, and even the ray tracing is approaching the level of the RTX 3000 GPUs. So what about over $1,000? Obviously, I hate the 4080 at $1,200. If you get it closer to $1,000, like with a coupon or open box, or maybe even used if you're lucky enough to find them, then it becomes a little bit better, but I would say it has to be very close to $1,000 in order for it to make sense. Tops like $1,079. I think a lot of people actually bought it. but Nvidia may lower the price eventually of this GPU because it's not really selling all that well. For this price, really hate the 4080 in 2023. It's way too overpriced. And of course, I'm talking about the base MSRP model, never even mention all of the other ones above $1,200. The same thing will hold true for the 7900 XTX. While at $999, it's a great value. Anything that's above that with the AIB models, maybe like $1,200 or above, starts to really push it, and I really hate that price for 2023. And then of course, the 4090 probably doesn't need too much chatter at this point. At $1,600, it's going to perform really well if you can find it at that. And of course, I think any of the other models that get way too expensive, like especially around $2,000, probably definitely hate that price even for a 4090. So if you can stick closer to that $1,600 MSRP, it's still going to be a great GPU in 2023. I mean, nothing is coming out so far that's going to beat it. So that's basically going to be where we're at in 2023. And remember, check out the used market. You may find some great deals and save a really huge amount out of retail if you're really concerned about that price to performance, or if you want to buy something now waiting for the prices of the next generation to drop, or maybe like a 4070 to come out. That may be a good option because then you're going to lose the least amount of money, or else you're just going to have to pony up and pay for the much more exorbitant GPU prices that a lot of these GPUs you should really hate in 2023. They are not good deals at all, but there's still a few pretty good GPUs mixed in there that you can buy and be overall pretty happy with the price to performance. All right, guys, so remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.